I read an article that was posted, I think, yesterday about Mike Reed, and he kind of talked about the defense, specifically the defensive backs, because, obviously that's who he coaches. And he really talked about a lot about the hunger of this defense heading into this season and kind of the theme of unfinished business for this defense. It really feels like this defense is heading into this season with a lot of unfinished business. He mentioned players like Tyler Davis, Ruka Rororo, guys like that, XT, guys like that who returned. And I think they really returned for a purpose. They returned because they felt like they didn't perform to the level that they wanted to last season, that the defense overall didn't perform to the level. And we can look at the numbers, and the numbers tell that story, right? The defense obviously underperformed based on the talent that they have, both on the front end, really, and more so the back end, is what Mike Reed was talking about. And he was just talking about he saw a hunger in, our safeties and our cornerbacks and those guys really focusing on the small things and really buying into some of the stuff that the coaching staff has been preaching the entire time, but it really got identified to them last year when, they saw, not focusing on the fundamentals, where that gets you. That's the difference between a touchdown and a pass breakup, right? That's the difference between a first down and a pass breakup. That's the difference between a tackle for loss and a run that goes 30 yards, right? Especially out there on the edge, because if you miss a tackle out there on the edge, nobody's out there to save you, right? You're the only one. You're on an island alone, right? So I don't know if you saw it, but what's kind of your thoughts on our secondary and just the theme that seems to be coming out of the defensive side of the ball this spring?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get the same vibes and kind of the same sentiment from everyone that's been talked to on that side of the ball, from Mike Reed to some of the defensive backs to the defensive line. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a reinvigorated type of hunger in this group. I think just from the preparation and how they go about business. I know Dabo said that one thing about this group is he hasn't. There were times last year where he felt like he had to bring that effort out of some of the guys,
Yep.
And he hasn't had to do that so far this through the short time they've been practicing. But so I think those are all good signs. So I do think this group has a lot to prove. The back end definitely had its struggles last year. From giving up big plays in the air. That was the kind of the theme of when Clemson's defense had its worst performances. It was the explosive plays through the air. So getting back to that is huge, and I think it helps that there's a lot of really talented guys that have come in as mid-years, not just on the defensive line. Everyone knows about the defensive line, but in the secondary. So I think it's been huge for those guys. They have some new blood and they have some experienced guys. So it's a good mix, and they're pushing each other. And you have some guys that you didn't really get to see much of last year due to injury that are playing well. I know Mike Reed specifically mentioned Malcolm Green, a guy that he really highly rated kid coming out of Highland Springs in Virginia, same high school that Kayvon Wallace went to. A guy that's he's played a decent amount in his career, but just has had injury issues and hasn't been able to stay on the field consistently. But they've seen a lot from him, and he seems to. They said that he seems to be back to 100%, and he's playing like it. Yep. And I think that's a really good sign, because I think he was a guy like him to play well.
Yeah, I think he was quoted saying that he's felt the best he's ever had, at Clemson. So. Yeah, look forward to seeing what he can do for sure.
Yeah, and I do think if Malcolm Green especially is, because he's a guy that has a little bit of scheme versatility. I mean, he's a guy that's played everywhere. He's played outside. He's played nickel. I do think that takes some of the pressure off of some of the safeties. Most guys like Andrew Makuba, R.J. Mickens, and kind of allows him to allows those guys to kind of stay in their more natural positions, especially Andrew Makuba. So I think Malcolm Green really getting and playing his best ball would be a huge boost for this defensive secondary. So
Absolutely. And you
um,
got, you got a Toriano Pride that got a ton of experience last year. Um, you got sorry, I'm blanking on names right now. We talked about Sheridan Jones,
Jaden Lucas,
Jaden Lucas,
Nate
yep,
Wiggins.
Nate Wiggins, a guy that we saw literally develop before our eyes last season. Absolutely amazing. We got some guys, some young guys that unfortunately had to be thrown into the fire last year. But guess what? They got experience. And then, Nate Wiggins, a guy that, looked internally last year, and Dabo even talked about it in quite a few interviews where he just bought into preparation. He bought into film study. He bought into the entirety of the game. And earlier in the spring, Dabo talked about an Andrew Makuba, right? Who he wants to see take that next step. He wants to see him mature a little bit. He talked about Andrew Makuba's regression from last season and how he thought that he regressed, and he feels like he needs to become more mature, both in his preparation and his off the field buying into workouts and stuff like that. Just really buying into becoming a better player. And so far this spring, it's been that he's doing all of that. He's taking his body serious. He's taking his preparation seriously. So it looks like we're going to have a lot of bought-in players and a lot of players, fortunately, that have real experience in our secondary, right? Something that we have not had the luxury of in the recent past anyway, So I look for those guys to turn a corner. It seems to be that they know the discrepancies or the deficiencies from last year. They know where they went wrong. They know what they need to do to get better. And it seems like the coaching staff has gotten their point across, right? And there's buy-in on that particular position group, right? So I did want to talk about the defensive linemen as well. We do know, that we are missing people along the defensive front, right? We're missing an XT. We're missing a Rook. We're missing who else are we missing along the defensive front? Who else is out? I'm trying to think. There's one other person.
I can't think of it.
I can't think of it. But
XT and Rook is who I think of.
XT and Rook, those are two big names, right?
Is it Justin Matt? Is Maskell hurt? I think it might be Justin. I'm not sure.
No, I think Maskell's there.
Peyton Page. Thank you.
Peyton Page. Thank you. There we go. I was thinking defensive tackle, but I knew it wasn't Tyler Davis.
I knew it
wasn't Tyler Davis, but I knew it was another defensive tackle, and I couldn't think of the name. So thank you, Jermaine. Peyton Page, Rook, XT, big guys missing along the defensive line, right? But with all of that missing, we are seeing some young guys get some playing time, right? A lot of talk of Peter Woods and him just kind of being a specimen, if you will, right? Just kind of being a plug-and-play player. He's really had, for the first week of spring practice, seems like he's done really well. The coaches are really happy with what he's done. And a lot of young guys getting some work along the defensive line. So what's kind of your thoughts on the defensive line? Do you think we're still, really slim at on the edge? We're obviously, I feel like we're pretty deep within the middle, but what's your thoughts on the middle and then more so the edge?
Yeah, from what I can tell, it's probably still a work in progress. Again, it's kind of similar to the offensive line, especially the interior. Just you're trying to build depth, at defensive ends because you don't have a lot of proven guys, and with XT out, and I know I see some people say that Maskell rolled his ankle. I do remember reading that, so
okay.
he's probably limited. You need some of those other guys to really step up. guys like Cade Denhoff, and I've heard some things about Jaheim Lawson, from the 2021 class. Uh,
Mhm.
he's played. I know he's played some linebacker too. He's gotten some reps of linebacker, but they're repping him at edge too. So you're really trying to build that depth. That defensive end is going to be huge because if you have, one injury, especially like if XT goes down and if Mascall isn't, if Mascall isn't healthy either, you're already really
Yeah.
deep, and you have a lot of questions there. So.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's been really good to have the mid years come in for this group. A lot of talk has been made about guys like Tamarian Parker coming in and really stepping up. Peter Woods has been phenomenal. He's kind of played all over. Um,
Absolutely.
so having that kind of invigoration of youth and talent is huge. But yeah, this defensive line, I still feel pretty good about it. It's just going to be it's kind of wait and see at defensive end. I would not surprise me if Parker ends up uh, playing really early at defensive end, uh,
Yeah.
and maybe Peter Woods as well. I
I
know
mean,
Peter
we're
Woods, that he's kind of been working everywhere too, so I don't know
right.
whether they want him to uh, play defensive tackle or defensive end. He's probably cross training a lot there. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, we're probably going to need them too. And Bryce Broomfield gets in and says Jaheim Lawson on deck. Um, I did hear Dabo talking about Lawson and how he's kind of changed his body, and he's been super impressed with him this spring. So look to him to maybe make the turn, kind of turn that corner. Maybe insert himself into a little bit bigger role. We got guys that are going to have the opportunity to step up, and that's the important part, right? They're going to have the opportunity. Clemson recruits very well. So those guys are just going to have to turn the corner. They're going to have to make the most of their opportunities and step up. And that's, Clemson is look, we turn out really, really good defensive linemen, right? So look for that to continue. I think we'll be just fine. There are some question marks. There are some depth issues for sure. Not even a question. And some of our most experienced guys haven't been our most healthy guys, right? So health is going to be key along the Clemson defensive line this coming season in XT. And look, no disrespect to XT at all. I love XT. He is probably, if not my most favorite, one of my most favorite Clemson Tigers ever. Right? I just love XT's story. I love what he's kind of endured at Clemson. He's had a rough go, and yeah, I talked about it a lot last season on this channel. Jordan, that I did, and I hope this year is what I was hoping for last year for XT. I hope he has a breakout season. I hope he absolutely destroys offenses and that he can turn that into a great NFL career. But there's a lot of talk about Peter Woods and all these guys, all these early enrollees coming out and really showing what they can do. So maybe that turns into depth. Maybe that turns into real deal playing time this coming fall. We don't know, but I think we're in a good place when it comes to the defensive line. Although we may have some experience issues, I guess, along the defensive line in certain positions, some depth issues. But that's not always going to be a bad thing. So some of those guys may step up and surprise you, and you learn their names way faster than you maybe would have if, say, that 2018 defensive line came back, right? Those dudes were, it was what it was with that, right? So